All right, folks, welcome to episode 35 of Ionan's Edge. Today, I'm doing a review on the Giant Mouse RIV in titanium and brown micarta. Let's jump right in with some basic specs. This little bugger uses a blade with a high flat grind, LMAX bowler steel. It's not quite a Wharncliffe, as you can see, and it's not quite a drop point. It's a kind of a unique blade design there. It uses a stone-washed finish that's almost satiny looking. They really did a nice job on this stone wash. Again, we've got brown micarta for the handles, titanium frame that uses a frame lock. The knife is manually deployed by use of either a flipper or a blade cutout. That's pretty generous there, so most people can get their hands in there. There is 2 inches of usable fine cutting edge here. The scale length on the knife is 3 3/8 of an inch, and the tip to tail length of this knife is 5 1/4 inches. It weighed in on my digital scale at a very light 2.39 ounces, so just under 2.4. So let's talk about what I like about this knife. The knife is manufactured, by the way, it's OEM'd by RIV. So the build quality on this knife is spot on. It has great fit and finish, as you'd expect from a RIV knife. And the blade, like I said, this blade design is excellent. The ergos on the knife are solid as well. It gives you a generous forward finger choil that's really big and well rounded out. And even this second choil back here has the same radius. So even if you have large hands and bigger fingers, there is some extra room here to get a larger finger on this knife. The knife also has really well-placed jimping. It's right up here on top of the blade where you'd put your thumb in the most normal position. There's jimping on the palm swell / back spacer here. And then there's some jimping here on the flipper tab that functions to kind of give your hand a little bit of traction there at the front. So great job on all of that stuff right there. The knife also has a functional pocket clip. I carried it without the pocket clip as well. The knife is on loan to me from Grumpy Grunt. Shout out to him, by the way. An awesome member of our community. If you do not subscribe to Grumpy, you should go check out his channel and subscribe right away. What are you doing? But anyway, he sent it to me without the pocket clip, and it is comfortable to carry without the clip, but I actually like the clip on it, and I'll explain why toward the end of my review. The blade is LMAX steel, as I mentioned before. It's a really good type of steel to have, especially on a small knife like this. It's been great for small and medium cutting tasks. I did rip through some cardboard with it. It's a pretty solid little cutter. It doesn't give you a lot of, obviously, of cutting edge, but the knife has stayed perfectly sharp through the whole thing. It doesn't really even need to be restropped after I've used it for the last week and a half to 2 weeks and carried it around in my pocket. In my left pocket, which is where I carried this knife, or as a 5th pocket carry knife, which I did carry it in my 5th pocket on some of my 511 pants and when I wore jeans one day, the knife basically disappears in your pocket. It's so small, it's so light, you just don't realize that you're carrying this thing. You stick it in there, boop, and you forget about it. And that's really what you want from a micro compact carry knife or a 5th pocket carry knife. Again, it's perfect for EDCing in those roles. And obviously, if this was the only knife you were carrying, it's going to take care of most of the small and medium cutting tasks. It is a very ruggedly built knife. Feels great. Has dual ball bearings in it. Has a good frame lock. Locks up well. No issues with that. No fit and finish issues or blade lock issues. So, are there any issues or concerns with the knife in general? I don't have any with the build quality or the blade. As a matter of fact, I love this blade. I love the way they did this. It's kind of like a Wharncliffe. It's not a completely flat surfaced blade. It's got some radius on it, so, you know, some dip to it. But as soon as you press down with your thumb, this tip goes right down into whatever you're cutting into. So if you're making utility cuts like this, it's great. It's a very confident knife to, you know, pull through a piece of cardboard. It's good for, you know, this, like I said, small to medium task, and it basically is hardly ever going to go dull with this Elmex steel. In the same category range as 20 CV and M390, so you're going to get great performance out of this, especially since you won't be using it for super heavy cutting tasks. Like I said, the ergos on the knife are great. There are no hot spots. The finger choil and the back choil are very generous. The jimping is in the right places. The micarta is nicely done on the knife as well. But that brings me to the two things that I'm a little wishy-washy on this. So functionally, in order to open this knife and not have any of the blade hit you in the hand, you have to make sure that you have the knife kind of upright like this. If you have it in the palm of your hand and you have fat hands, like I did a couple of times when I first opened this knife like this, the blade actually scraped against my palm. Because if you look, there's not a lot of distance here, there we go, between the back of the knife and the blade. So if you got kind of fat, chubby hands, the blade will come out here and tend to kind of scrape against your hand. So what I learned is, and this is where the pocket clip comes in handy, I did have a couple issues because I have fairly large hands, and this is a frame lock. Without the pocket clip, I tended to always kind of touch the frame lock and make the knife hard to deploy. But with the pocket clip, what I have learned is if I just put my hands right over the pocket clip, this clears the back of my hand and I can open the knife. So you do have to be a little conscious of where you place your hands, but for me, this worked perfectly. As long as I remember to put these back two fingers on the pocket clip right there, I don't affect the frame lock of the knife, and the knife deploys properly without the point of the blade scratching the side of my hand. And that's just one of those things you have to deal with a micro EDC pocket knife like this. If you can manage to do those two things, you won't have any trouble deploying this knife at all. It's reasonably fidgety. It's not a drop shutty knife, but it is very smooth. Even though it's on bearings, like I said, it's not a knife that you're going to drop shut. But as long as you basically deploy it like this, you'll never have an issue with getting, you know, with having the blade come in contact with your hands. And my second thing, which is a very, very tiny little thing, to be honest, is the micarta is nice. It has decent texturing. But it doesn't really do it for me. Like I said, it's been well used, so it's kind of a natural brown, like you can see on the inside here, and then it's darkened up over time with the patinaing that micarta usually gets. And it's got good texture on it, but honestly, you don't really need it on this knife. You get such a full grip, and you've got back jimping and finger jimping here, and a little bit of jimping that you feel against your hand, and a forward choil that you don't really. The micarta is really more of a looks thing. If you like the micarta and tie look, then that's not going to be an issue for you at all. Myself personally, I would prefer that this knife be full titanium, and it does come in that variant. And if I were to buy this knife, like I said, this one is on loan from Grumpy, I would buy the full titanium version of this knife. I love the blade. I love the ergos. I just don't think that, other than for looks, the micarta is something that I would like. And again, you have to be careful about where you place your hands when you deploy the knife, so that one, you don't press on the frame lock, and two, the blade tends to be close to the back here. It doesn't stick out, but it tends to be close to the back. So if you have the chubby part of your hand like this, the blade's going to scrape your hand. And I did that a couple times the first few days I carried the knife. So let's talk about the summarization of this knife. But before we do that, let me give you a couple of real-world size comparisons of some, I just did it there, so of some other popular knives. So here is the RIV. Here is a knife in the lower end of the category in micro compacts that would fit in here. This is the CJRB Malia from Swags Designed. Let's give you the Ferrum Forge Mini Archbishop, another knife that fits right into this micro carry size. Okay, you can see these are all in the same size. I would say, feel-wise, this is the best out of the three. I like the Malia. And the Ferrum Forge version of this knife right here, I feel is too thin in the back and too rounded, so it doesn't really fit my hands. But finally, we're going to show you a knife that I do feel it directly and ergonomically fits in with, which would be the Savivi Baby Banter. So you can see when you look at these two knives, they are very similar in size. There's a little bit more cutting edge on the RIV, and it has a little longer and thicker handle, but again, it's got those same kind of easy ergonomics that you can pick up with a lot of different hand sizes and feel good in. There is a vast difference in price, as a knife like this goes for about $60. The Ferrum Forge Mini Archbishop is about $85 to $90. And this knife, as it sits with the tie and micarta combo, is $195. If you go for the full tie version that has tie on both sides, that is $215. So what do I think of this knife? I plan on buying a full tie version of this knife. It's worthy of the investment. It is a very, very well-made knife. Again, it's made by RIV. It's got Elmax steel, beautiful fit and finish on the whole knife, and I definitely plan on putting one of these in full titanium in my knife collection. It is an excellent fifth pocket carry knife. There are some other similar and cheaper options, but this is pretty much a premium grade fifth pocket carry knife with top of the line steel and great ergos. So there you go. There is the Giant Mouse Ace RIV in titanium and brown micarta. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider hitting the like button. And if you'd like to be notified about more of my content, hit subscribe so you'll know when my future videos drop. Thank you as always for watching, and stay sharp, folks.